I'm not sure if you're talking about feminists or you're talking about women. I've never seen a mass movement of women advocating for there not to be a draft or to equalize the draft.
I feel like the draft is not a popular opinion. Most people don't want a draft.
There was a huge movement against the draft during the Vietnam War.
That's for sure too.
Okay. We still have the draft, and it's still male. In 2022, an 18-year-old boy, I should say an 18-year-old man, has to register. And also, when it comes to the draft, you might say, well, what's the likelihood that there would be a draft? But every 18-year-old man has to register for the selective service. And if you don't, technically it's a felony that could be prosecuted. There's a $250,000 fine. I don't want to, I want to straw man the other, sorry, I want to steel man the other side here. Has someone in recent history been prosecuted for not registering for the draft? Sorry, not registering for the selective service? No, it's not really being prosecuted, but there are other negative consequences if you don't. For example, you can't apply for federal loans for college if you aren't registered for the selective service. You will be denied certain federal jobs. There's a few others that aren't coming to me right now, but there are definitely other disadvantages to the draft, like I just mentioned.
Absolutely. The draft is not a popular opinion.
Why do you think that only men are drafted?
Why do I think only men are drafted? Probably because
we're more capable.
Men
of
are better soldiers.
Yeah. You don't think that that's like a patriarchal idea?
I mean, I think patriarchy is just the natural way of like human survival.
Well, I think it's a biological reality. Yeah, if you look at physical strength, upper body strength, I mean, I don't imagine that this is going to be a controversial take. Men, broadly speaking, have more muscle than women. They're stronger, generally speaking, than women. Are there some women that are stronger than men? Yes, but generally speaking, men are stronger than women.
If you believe that's true, then why does it strike you as unfair that only men are drafted? I don't understand.
Why does it? Well, the thing is that I think it would be wishful thinking for me to say that we should do away with the draft, because that would create an equality between men and women if just nobody could get drafted. But the reality is there could be some scenario where we would need to draft upon people to defend the country, whether that be a threat from Russia, whether that be a threat from China. Who knows? Threat from fucking aliens? I don't know. There could be aliens coming.
Largest military budget. We have one of the largest, if not the largest, military budget in the whole wide world. I'm sure we could round up the weapons or the manpower to do it if the people are paid enough.
We could also only draft able-bodied people regardless of gender, which I think is what feminists and women who advocate for gender equality already believe in and advocate for. It's actually in your interest.
It's not in anybody's interest to do that. We're gonna have a weaker army.
I don't think there should be a draft, but I mean, I'm just saying that's better than only drafting men.
Well, I mean, from a pure equality standpoint, I think women should be subject for military conscription, but that would be equality. But women are not in the streets saying, we want equality, we want to be drafted.
I think it's because when it comes to drafting, people think, oh, you're going to go get drafted? Boom, front lines, it's over. When really drafting could just be like, oh, you're getting drafted? Okay, there's another job that you could do. Because I don't think every role in the military is purely martial, you know? So honestly, I think that if women were to be drafted, I feel like it's in everyone's best interest to be like, okay, let's look at each person and be like, what are you capable of? This role, go to that role. I mean,
if you're getting drafted, that means some serious shit's going on.
Yeah, if there's a draft,
you're getting sent to die.
So it's usually the front lines, right? Or is it
the thing is, I mean, it's just a biological reality that men are better soldiers.
Yeah, it's
We're
not
physically
even just
stronger.
It's reaction time,
I mean, they've done a lot of studies on this, unit cohesion. If it's just
If you believe that men make better soldiers, why do you believe that women should also be drafted?
I personally don't. Well, Well, because of equality.
Yeah.
I'm an egalitarian. I believe in gender equality.
He's kind of pointing out the hypocrisy of like women that claim to be fighting for equality that only pick and choose equality that benefits them. Yeah.
I think a lot of us would agree with that, though. Like, that's why a lot of us don't go for full-on gender equality.
Exactly,
Like,
yeah.
And I think that's the issue. A lot of people assume that all women want gender equality and all women are feminists just because we're women, and that's not necessarily the case. I mean, I just mean extreme feminism, like in all the stereotypes. They just push that onto everyone.
I mean, extreme feminists are the loudest in the room always, so it makes
Exactly.
sense.
But I mean, I forgot if it was you who raised this point that there could be other positions in the military that it might not be a combat role, but that women could contribute towards. So I still think, there still would be an inequality there because it probably predominantly, like if there was a front line, I'd say it would be mostly men that are just being put through the meat grinder of war. But I mean, could they help with the war effort? Could they be contributing some, also the way warfare is done now is very different than it was in like World War I, World War II with a trench warfare. Like, so it's changed pretty dramatically. So, but I mean,
It's a good
we
point.
still could,
Yeah,
I
that's a
mean,
good
the
point.
country could still use essentially your cheap labor. So, but, so just to bring it back though, you were talking about the patriarchy, right?
I was just talking about how a lot of the system, it's men making men do a lot of these things. It's not women making men. Well, that's not true. There is some sort of, I'm sorry, what were you saying?
Well, you were saying that there's the patriarchy and kind of, I went through, I mean, I don't know, it took me 3 minutes to get through that entire list, that a lot of these, I think you were suggesting that a lot of these things that I was saying is, well,
It sucks.
It's the
it really sucks.
it's bad, but men, you have yourselves to blame. Is that what I'm getting from that?
What I'm trying to say is that women are on your guys' side. Like, I think it's a really sucky thing that, but it's not like the women caused it.
But it's not clear to me, like,
Because women aren't the lawmaker. Well, women did not make the decision to draft all men to the army, right? Like, we didn't really have that power back then.
Like, I agree with you because in this sense, like, a lot of these things exist because of beliefs that women are not perpetuating. Like this idea, for example, that men make better soldiers, therefore only men should be drafted, like women should be protected and can't be soldiers. That's not an idea that women came up with. That's a pretty sexist notion. Debunking that
But, I
idea
mean-
actually benefits men.
I mean, just
biology is
Yep.
sexist, and the military has done extensive studies on this, and men do make better soldiers.
What is the hypocrisy that you're trying to point out then if you
Um,
believe that biologically men make better soldiers? And why does it bother
Do you
you
want
then
the
that
draft?
feminists are not advocating for gender equality in the draft?
Hold
do
on,
you want the
there's-
draft or do you not want the draft? Like, I'm very confused.
Well,
you make
okay.
better soldiers, but
So there-
draft is no good?
I mean,
So,
because like
we need, okay, so would it, in an ideal world, should there just be no war? Yes. However, I realize that there could be some scenario. Is warfare terrible? Would the draft suck? Yes. But there could conceivably be scenarios where a draft is required.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not really for getting rid of it, because if a country can't draft, like, it would open the country up to, I mean, it would just, honestly, if it was that bad, there'd probably be martial law and they'd just throw people in the military. I don't know how that, constitutionally, I don't know how that would work. Ultimately, we need a draft because there are threats from other countries.
Okay, so you think the draft is a good idea then?
I think he's saying that if
It's
there's a
necessary.
draft, men and women
Oh,
should
so
be
necessary
drafted.
evil, I understand now.
Yes, a
Okay.
draft is necessary.
Yeah, it really sucks that you guys potentially have to do something like that. It's a huge risk that you guys take.
Well, look at what happened in Ukraine. All of the women were free to leave the country, and all of the men between the ages of 18 to 60 could not leave.
Mhm.
They could not leave.
Mhm.
So, it's happening.
Ukraine is so sad. It's a really sad situation.
It's very sad.
Yeah.
It's incredibly sad. And most of the people are dying are men.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't want to pull it up because it'd probably get us banned on YouTube, but someone made a compilation video of all these Ukrainian women who went off to fucking Sweden or some other country that was safe, right? They're on Tinder in the club partying while their countrymen, it's literally a photo comparison, are dead on the ground with bullet holes in their head.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference. And there's no feminists when fucking Russia invades. Let me tell you that. You can't be feminist when Russia's invading your country.
Mm-hmm. What does that have to do with feminism?
I mean, to point out like the hypocrisy, like a lot of people have an issue with is like feminists will say like, oh, we need more women represented in like Fortune 500 company CEOs or like Hollywood directors or like in all these like high like paying fields.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like you don't hear women saying like, oh, we need to even like the amount of like female plumbers there are.
Mm-hmm.
We need to even the amount of like people working in the fucking power poles and stuff. Like they only like argue for the positions that are going to benefit them, but they ignore all the other inequalities. That's kind of what like a big problem a lot of people have with feminism.
I can see that.
No, I can see that. And also, I feel like representation is a very like complex subject because there's a strong assumption that if you are represented, you automatically have power. But like, what does that power look like? And does that power actually help what's going on? Like, you know, for example, like Asian representation is super important in media right now. But like, is Asian representation gonna help, you know, like low income Asian families? Like, is watching Crazy Rich Asians going to help that? So like when it comes to like, you know, when it comes to the conversation of feminism and like representation, even in itself, I don't even know if people understand representation as it is.
I mean, I'm personally wholly against like caring about representation of like what people look like and their ethnic backgrounds. Like we need like diversity of like thought, not people like where people were born and where their parents were born. Like I just don't focus on that.
Mm-hmm.
I want to bring it back to the patriarchy thing because you brought that up. So can you just kind of reiterate so I listed all the things and you said, well, that's because of patriarchy.
Okay, and then
Okay, so
I'm sorry, I was waiting for a question.
oh well, yeah. So you're basically saying, well, yes, it's men have it bad in all these ways, but because other men are doing it to you. But it's not clear to me that
the
they
draft
are.
is historically a man signed legislation to make it happen, and it's most women aren't like.
I think that's a weird example because it's kind of
advocating
necessary
for the draft.
Yeah.
Like women are not advocating.
We're not
for the
like
draft. We're signing it into
we're
law.
keeping the draft. Like no one's doing that. No one's doing that.
I guarantee you, on both sides of the aisle, whether they're Republican or Democratic politicians, there's not going to be a push anytime soon from any women, whether Republican or Democrat, to be trying to abolish the draft or to equalize the draft between men and women.
If there was a march to eradicate the draft, I would march in it.
But that's
like I mentioned
that's-
earlier. There was a huge push to abolish the draft during the Vietnam War, and it was both men and women who participated.
sure.
Yeah.
I'm
Definitely.
sure if it becomes relevant again, we'll see the same thing happen.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree on that.
But okay, so
Because we
you.
have nukes. We also have nukes. Nukes are fun, right? Not fun.
Oh
but
God.
Like, nukes are pretty powerful.
So fun.
I mean, you could argue that nukes are kind of like one of the worst things ever invented. But on one hand, it's kind of given us some peace, but on the other hand, it's a pretty substantial existential threat. You know, like
Yeah. Like
mutually
Japan,
assured
like,
destruction.
yeah.
Like
She said nukes are fun. Like Hiroshima, Nagasaki.
The
like,
science
they weren't
is
having
incredible.
fun.
Like, how did man build something like this? I'm a big science person.
Yeah.
okay, so let's talk about the patriarchy. Okay, so what is the patriarchy?
Well, I'm not here to describe what is the patriarchy. I'm just here to just say I use patriarchy as a definition to just display like we didn't make the draft. That's all I'm trying to say with that.
Okay.
Okay.
But, like, just because someone is a man doesn't mean they did something because they are a man.
Just because they did something as a man doesn't mean they.
Like
Could
just
you-
because
could you elaborate on
just
that?
because a man does a bad thing,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean he did that because he's a man, or vice versa.
Of course.
I think he just happened to be a man in power who made that decision at the time.
Like
Because
if,
people in government were mainly men who wrote that, right?
Is that what you're trying to say?
I think.
well, so you're saying,
I mean, it
I
makes
just-
logical sense to like have a draft because it's like we built this country and it's like we have to defend it, like if it comes down to it.
But it's
And-
absolutely
yeah.
human construction, right? Like we defined it. It wasn't like cavemen. We're gonna draft everyone if it came to like, you know, it came.
I mean, I would
from
say
a
the reason
situation
men
for
are
sure.
drafted is because of like human history and the cavemen. Like if
Human
women,
nature.
yeah, if women were the ones hunting and gathering back in the day, like you guys would probably be stronger than us now. But that's not how nature played out.
well, yeah, even before society was really organized as it is today. I mean, there was tribal warfare and shit.
Yeah.
So, and if you were a dude, here's a spear.
I think what Reina was maybe trying to say was that like the draft is just one example, but some of these policies when they were enacted, maybe were you trying to say
Yeah.
that the politicians were mostly or
It's
all men?
it's the politicians' blame. It's not like a man versus woman issue. It's like most
we're not
women
focusing on
are-
individual men and saying they deserve to do whatever because they're a man. I
Mhm.
think she was trying to say that the leaders were men at the time.
Yeah,
Sure.
What I was trying to say was that these men signed these things into law because they were motivated by like ideas of gender that
money as well.
Well, actually, they've done.
are,
They've,
I would say, outdated.
you know what? They actually did an analysis of like reigning women and queens and stuff, and they actually found that queens were more likely to go to war than male rulers were. Believe it or not.
What do you mean?
Like
they were willing
female
to?
rulers, like queens, were actually more war hungry.
Can you give
Then-
me? Can we have an example?
I don't know any of the names of any of the monarchs, but I'm pretty sure if you could probably Google it, something like female queen, or obviously it has to be female queen. Queens were more likely to go to war than kings.
I'm sure on like a proportion, like yeah.
Eric, do you want to Google it? Should we Google it?
Like perhaps Cleopatra?
Yeah, we see chat.
Bloody Mary, queen's more likely to go to war. Can you Google it, Eric?
There's Queen
Joan of
Elizabeth,
Arc?
There's something from the University of Chicago. There's a study by the University of Chicago, Eric. It might be the first one. Let me know. Do you have it?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Okay, you're gonna have to zoom in. Do states experience more peace under female leadership? We examine this question in the context of Europe over the 15th to 20th centuries. We instrument queenly rule using gender of the firstborn and whether the previous monarchs had a sister. We find that polities led by queens participate in war more than polities, I've never heard that one, led by kings. Moreover, aggressive participation varied by marital status. Single queens were attacked more than single kings. However, married queens attacked more than married kings. These results suggest that asymmetries in the division of labor positioned married queens to be able to pursue more aggressive war policies. That's just one example. I don't know. But it said 39%. In the Google thing, it says 39% more likely to engage in war in a given year.
I didn't know that. That's very
That
interesting.
is intriguing. Thank you.
Wow.
for that
Yeah,
information.
y'all queens just be going at it, going for war.
Riveting.
But let's just, I want to kind of get back to dating for a little bit and then wrap up. But you mentioned patriarchy. Do we currently live in a patriarchy?
I don't know enough about the topic to.
Well,
discuss
we
that.
can open it up to the rest of the
Okay.
panel. Do you guys think we live in a patriarchy?
I think we live in capitalism. With
That's true.
OnlyFans. So
I agree with that.
Patriarchy is kind of out of the picture for me right now.
Yeah, women are doing like killing it. Like how?
Not all.
I mean, we got women at this
Yeah.
table out earning us. So.
Yeah, and
Just saying.
and like women are out graduating men in college, so it's like they're doing better in school, like
Yeah,
not
they-
going to jail as much.
like-
So it's like women are kind of killing it.
60, I think it's like 60-40 in universities.
I heard it was worse. I heard 70-30. I'm not
Well,
100%.
I guess it
yeah.
depends on the university,
Yeah.
but